Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, Season 5, The Reunion. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Keep in mind that everything I say is completely speculative based on an edit of a TV show, so let's watch.
I kept to myself during the experiment, and I felt like that was what was best for me, and I'm very close with most of the girls. So they were telling me what she was saying about me, and in my head, I didn't care. So I'm like, I'm probably never gonna see this girl again. I don't care what she thinks about me. I don't need to address it.
So, people often say that. I don't care. I couldn't care less. I think that denies us the opportunity to acknowledge our feelings. It would likely hurt her, Stacy. And the fact that she was so angry at Johnny when she saw her, it doesn't point in the direction of someone that doesn't care. And this is the larger problem that this points to is that we have a paternalistic society that identifies emotions as being weak in general, but particularly if you're hurt by someone else doing something, if your feelings are hurt, because it implies that your self-esteem or your mood can be affected by other people and maybe affected by people that you don't want it to be affected by. But of course, that's how we work as human beings. So she can say it however she wants to, but when I hear something like that, I hear a very normal American who will deny when their feelings are hurt as a way of trying to save face. And it doesn't really save face in my book. If anything, it just points to someone who doesn't have the maturity or the differentiation or the emotional maturity to be able to admit when their feelings are hurt, right?
And unfortunately, we had to be in positions where we're all together again.
And if you aren't acknowledging your feelings, you might even be actively denying it even to yourself. Then when the feelings come up in a big way, when you are seeing Johnny, then all of those feelings are going to come flying out, perhaps in a way that you regret later.
And then it's just like the chiming in and the looks that I'm a Coke bottle, you want to shake it, like, let's pop the top. Like, if you want to go there, I feel like you brought that upon yourself.
Coke bottle? Is that a drug reference? What is that? Is that a body shame? What is that? Let me look it up. All right, so looking at Urban Dictionary, where all old people go to learn about slang. And the first one is, it's about eyeglasses being really thick. You're wearing Coke bottles on your face. Look at that Coke bottle glasses on that person. And then the second one is describing a girl that has curves. Damn, girl, you got a body. You shaped like a Coke bottle. Okay. And then Coke bottle is another way to use drugs. All right. And another usage of Coke bottle is that's a sexual thing. So there's another one. That's another sexual thing. That's another sexual thing. Everything's a sexual thing, and that is another sexual thing. So, what is she talking about? Okay. Well, at any rate, the gist of it is that Johnny was being legitimately upsetting and hostile for no reason against Stacy, and saying a lot of nasty things, and we can imagine maybe a lot more than even what we saw, right? And that was pretty ugly, and I said that at the time. I understood her pain, but and I imagined that it was Johnny's way of trying to hold back the tears. She didn't want to cry. She didn't want to feel the pain because the pain was large, and her way of managing that was to get angry, which is what we all do, but it still doesn't make it okay.
That I'm a Coke bottle, you want to shake it, like, let's pop the top. Like, if you want to go there, I feel like you brought that upon.
Oh, she's talking about that she had a lot of carbon dioxide gas buildup, i.e. her anger. And that, I bet you what she's referring to is production. That she's saying, look, if production's going to put us in the same room, then my top is going to pop. I think maybe that's what she's saying. Okay.
On yourself by gossiping about me.
What did she gossip about? What was she saying? What did the girl say she was saying?
If he chooses her, he's going to have bigger problems.
Okay, then he is still being nice and saying, you did good. I think saying at the party, you managed to avoid pitfalls of that situation, like stooping to her level or not expressing your pain, not reaching out to Chris for support. I think that's what he's referring to.
Then that I was a safe choice, which is very interesting, that I couldn't make him happy, and it didn't bother me, but I mean, the people that she, I guess, thought were her friends were my friends and letting me know what was going on.
So now they're having a side conversation as Stacy is talking. It would make sense the two of them would have feelings about Stacy. It would be hard to sit there and listen to her talk. Or this is a passive aggression, that they're trying to be hostile in a semi-passive way. But let's rewind this for the subtitle.
And the people that she, I guess, thought were her friends were.
She says, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do other than tell the truth. Oh, I think she's saying, I'm sorry for telling everyone that you ghosted me. Is that what she's saying?
My friends and letting me know what was going on. So.
And then he says, no, I screwed up. I'm sorry. It's your truth. You're okay. Okay, yeah. I mean, it's nice to see, but they should probably wait until Stacy's done, because I am worried now.
My thing is, like, I have nothing to say to you unless you come at me, and I'm going to let you know how I feel. And I did. And that's what it was.
Did Johnny come at her? I mean, maybe she's talking about overall, that if you're going to come at me with those insults and say crap about me behind my back, then I'm going to let you have it. Okay. And, there's that statement again of, I'm going to tell you how I feel. Okay. Well, you could say, hey, Johnny, it hurts that you said those things. That was hurtful. I thought I didn't deserve that. That's pretty mean. And I don't like you. That's different than you are a piece of crap, right? What was it? Like, just really strong insults along those lines. That's not telling someone how you feel. That's telling someone how you think, is a better way to put it.
I don't think we're each other's cup of tea, and that's fine. We're just stuck in an environment where we have to.
And then he says, I missed what she said. Yeah. And then she says, I did too. It doesn't matter. Yeah, maybe that's for the best.
Is there something you want to share, Chris? What's that?
Just old friends.
Just catching up.
While she was talking to Johnny, they're having a conversation. I'm just trying to understand this dynamic.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, she doesn't know what they were saying. That is annoying if you are in a room where someone is speaking to the group and there's a side, especially as a professor. Oh, and even as a student, when I would hear people having like, what are you doing?
She wasn't forthcoming in the lounge area, and I was sharing a lot with her without knowing that her and Izzy had such a strong connection. So
that's not
I
true.
felt deceived in those moments.
Yeah. On one hand, from my perspective, I'm like, well, everyone is entitled to their privacy, and I think I said earlier, at first I would have thought that I would be like a Johnny, where I would talk about it, but in my life I'm not typically like that. But in a situation like that, I probably would, given how close you probably get to people there. So at first I'm like, well, she's entitled, Stacy's entitled to her privacy, but it depends on the nature of the conversations. If they were never directly talking about it, then that's one thing. If Johnny and Stacy were confiding, if Johnny's like confiding in Stacy's like, oh, Izzy, he's so great, I don't know, like he's talking about this other woman, I don't know, and Stacy's just like, it just seems like that would be pretty hurtful, right? I don't think any of that justifies what she said, Johnny, in the pods, but whatever Johnny did, Stacy went way beyond that in my book. If I were to put both of those bad moments, if you will, or all the bad moments we saw in the edit on a scale, I would say Stacy's was a lot worse. Although, I don't know, maybe for some people it's better if you're yelling straight to someone, it's like, just yell to my face, don't talk crap about me behind my back. I don't know.
I do think some of the comments I made were kind of petty once Izzy ended things with me, but my point was I didn't think they were compatible.
Okay. So she's admitting that they were petty. That's good. Stacy hasn't said anything along those lines. And she's saying, but, I wish people would just say, like a Chris, for example, would just say, even though we ghosted, like, Chris, come on, I had hopes for you. And then, but he's working on it. And she says it's petty. She should have just said it was petty. But, full disclosure, the things that I said in the pods, that was petty and uncalled for and unnecessary, and I was wrong to do that. End of paragraph. Next subject, I also was kind of concerned, you know what I mean? Instead of, I was petty, but it negates it a lot of the times.
I could have said that definitely in a more calm and logical way. That said, I don't think I was antagonizing anyone.
Yeah, and also looking back, and I think they show them an edited version of the show before coming on the reunion, or they've already seen the season. I don't know, but she was right. Like the things she was saying, at least she was saying. So maybe Johnny even knew, based on things that Stacey was saying, that they are not going to work out. The way that he talks about his finances and the way that Stacey talks about her need for someone to have strong finances, they are not going to, and that, you know, those are the things that she was saying, right? Well, actually, I'm curious as to, let's rewatch that actually.
Used, blindsided. Like, once again, I'm choosing someone who is emotionally unavailable. And I feel really dumb.
I really try to be my best.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it. Another way is that she just picked someone that wasn't as into her as she was into him. I think that Izzy is emotionally available on the scale of things anyway, seemingly. So it's an interesting thing now that we know the future. We have more data.
You're going home?
Yeah, he broke up with me.
Just now?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He didn't feel secure enough in our relationship.
That's interesting. So they ask her, "You're going home." Interesting. It's also interesting that they have these little cubby holes with all their stuff. I see hand sanitizer. She has makeup in her hands, I think, and there's one of those lint rollers. So yeah, makes sense. But if she initially was going on, which makes sense, that points in the direction of, well, I don't know what it points in the direction of. I think it points in the direction that she was really into Izzy, and she's like, well, if it ain't Izzy, then I'm going home. So, yeah.
Just now?
Yeah.
What did he say?
He didn't feel secure enough in our relationship. He was scared, and he made the safe choice.
I forgot about that. That was Izzy's big thing with Johnny, was that he didn't feel like Johnny loved him as much as he was hoping, which is strange because Stacey sure did not express love towards him. And then you wonder, does Izzy have a problem that Johnny thinks that Johnny has, where she goes for people who are emotionally unavailable? And so, yeah, but I think really Izzy chose Stacey because he would later say, and I thought he said to Johnny, but maybe he didn't. And he could have said it to Johnny, and Johnny just didn't remember that. He chose Stacey because in the end, he just wanted to be with her more. It was just that simple. And then as Johnny was talking about her past, that freaked him out.
He felt like he knew more about her. And if she's what he wants, then his issues are going to be outside of here.
They're still gonna break up in a month, so.
Yeah.
So others are participating in the conversation. I don't know, it probably wasn't Taylor. I think it would have been that other woman. I think her name's Nicole, I'm not sure. Where they're saying, yeah, they'll break up because they're not compatible or something. So maybe other women didn't like, because we could imagine a lot of people maybe not liking Stacey in the pods. Who knows? But or at least having concerns or less warmth. Maybe they didn't actively dislike Stacey, but they just didn't really know her very well because she wasn't talking. Because presumably she couldn't have talked with maybe anyone about the fact that her and Izzy were an item, because if she had told anyone, I mean, maybe she confided. Who knows? Anyway, point is that I forgot this bit where someone else is also saying, but Johnny is saying they're not going to work out. And at the time, it felt pretty petty, as Johnny put it, and it still is. But given now that we know what happened, it feels possibly pointing towards the direction that Johnny actually knew something, because she would know Izzy pretty well by this point, and maybe knew Stacey pretty well.
Like, they're just having fun in there.
You don't want to talk to Chris?
I mean, I will, but like, I just feel like I shit on our whole relationship this whole time.
And then another interesting thing is another person suggests, maybe you should talk to Chris. I think suggesting, hey, maybe you can rekindle things. And Johnny at first is thinking, oh, but I dumped him, so.
The process worked out differently than I thought, but Izzy told me he had a bad credit score. he just signed a lease somewhere else. Like, he doesn't seem ready for commitment. He's not ready to be actually vulnerable.
Oh, that's different. So she's not saying that Stacy and Izzy aren't going to work out because of the credit thing. She's saying that Izzy isn't ready for commitment. And that's a lot different than what I remember.
It fucking sucked. Through grade school, if we had like Christmas parties, Valentine's parties, anything, like I would either have to get picked up early from school or sit in a classroom by myself and like watch a movie.
Oh, wait, like they would purposefully separate you because of your religion?
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I was just sort of scrubbing through looking for different scenes of Johnny talking crap about Stacy. And I came across this one, and it reminded me that I haven't talked about something that I've been sort of thinking about. But for those of you that have been watching my deep dives with Umberto on the Duggars, and also my episodes on Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrandt, and other episodes that I've produced over the years of this podcast, and also just my work as a therapist, I, of course, over time would learn that for people who are raised in cults, and even if you enter a cult in your 20s or 30s, particularly if the cult is the sort that is high authority, which by definition they almost always are. Anyway, point is that in my deep dive with the Duggars, it really came into focus for me just how destructive these cults are, or high control religions, whatever you want to say. And I don't know if his branch of Jehovah's Witness was like this. We can't know. But I have had clients who have told me about the high control aspects of the religion, not only clients that were currently in the religion, but also people recovering from it, so I can speak to that. And what ends up happening for a lot of people is because from an early age, your whole life is being dictated by not breaking rules. And the whole system is based on verbally this notion that you need to follow the Bible and you need to follow God's will. But really, what's happening, in my opinion, is that they're trying to uphold the structure of the hierarchy within the religion, within that group, within that organization, and they use God and the Bible as an excuse to get everyone under control, either to exploit them for power reasons, for money reasons, for sexual reasons, which happens. Also, in these high control groups, like the Duggars and IBLP, the parents are at home. It's one thing to go to church and have those elements. It's another thing when the church comes home through the parents and the cult comes home through the parents. And the parents are now indoctrinating the kids, either knowingly or unknowingly. And what happens to people as their neurons are developing and their personality is developing and their schemas are developing, they aren't likely to develop a robust sense of who they are and what their rights are, because there are so many incursions upon that and so a little emphasis put on that. Your whole reason for existing is to serve God. And in some high control groups, they'll say, if you're serving yourself and you're not serving God actively, consciously, then you're acting for the devil. You're wrong, and you're putting yourself at huge risk. You're stepping outside the umbrella of authority within the religion, and horrible things are going to happen to you, or horrible things are going to happen to us if you do that. And so you're in this constant state of don't think for yourself. And another aspect is often sexuality is repressed and oppressed. And that's a normal human impulse that the vast majority of humans have, similar to thirst or hunger or the need to sleep or the need for creativity. We have a need for it, and the church from an early age, from the time that some kids are 4 years old and they're already telling kids on how to suppress their sexuality, how to dress, what to think, these kinds of things. And so as you have these feelings, you're at war with yourself. So not only is the church a cult, and not only did the cult come into your house through your parents, but now the cult is inside you, and you are the one oppressing yourself. And so you end up being raised in a situation where you're just an open vessel of obedience, and you have no sense of who you are. You don't understand where your boundaries are, because you couldn't have possibly learned that because of all the incursions. And also, you were never given a chance to state, hey, this is me and that's you. And those are important lessons that children learn, right? And particularly teenagers. So if you've never learned that, then you could develop a personality in which you have a really hard time with understanding your rights. And you might end up with someone who is withholding emotionally and maybe even verbally abusive or dismissive, harmful, hurtful. And you don't even know that it's wrong because you don't have a sense that it's hurting you. It is hurting you, but you don't have a sense of the feeling of it. And you think, well, that's normal. And I don't have the right to even ask myself, is this okay? And you might even be attracted to high control people that are withholding. You might actually not be attracted to people who are valuing of your emotions and who value their own emotions. So I just want to throw it out there that could be a part of Izzy's, the composition of his personality. I, of course, have no idea. I'm sure it's way more complicated than that for all the cast members. But I just thought that should be mentioned because when we think about the harm of cults, we tend to think about the big stories, right? The sexual exploitation or the brainwashing of certain ideas or the breaking up of families. And those are obviously horrific. But when children are being born into the cult, that is inside the house, and it's everywhere. It's not just 300 people in Waco, Texas. It is thousands upon thousands, millions of people who might live right next door to you and have a completely different reality because the propaganda that is being pumped into their heads, the way that they are separating themselves, like with Jehovah's Witness, they have a belief that I don't know, that if you celebrate Christmas or your birthday, it's actually against God. God wants you to only celebrate God. They don't want you to have rituals like this. I don't know, but I remember learning similar kinds of ideas for Moses when he came down from the burning bush, the mountain, Mount Sinai, I think, and the people had started to worship a golden cow, and he was very upset because that was very much against God, and it was idol worship, this kind of thing, and it was maybe translated into there's some sort of theme there of if you're not celebrating God, then you're against God. And anyway, I'm sure there's a whole philosophy that I'm not articulating well. But my point is that, the belief system isn't, unique to Jehovah's Witness, but the practice and the way that it's done without taking into consideration the context of society is that, especially when you have a lot of other elements of high control, you have children that are in school who are pulled out of school just because someone's having a birthday party in the classroom, right? And what that does, either inadvertently or on purpose, is the child is, one, they have to separate themselves from other people because they know that they're different and they have to avoid being like other people. And the peers, the children and the teachers in the community have to actively reject, and there might be discomfort around that person. I was like, remember Johnny, he has to be, or Izzy, he has to be removed from class. And even if you wanted to be friends with someone like that, you might err on the side of, something's going on over there. I'll just be friends with this other person that is more understandable to me. And so it has this, and of course, bullying of people like Izzy. So it has this effect of separating the cult member from society, which is, of course, what they want, because then they can get their hooks into you. So I don't know about Izzy. I don't know. Of course, I'm sure there are plenty of Jehovah's Witnesses that are not exploitative or harmful to people, but I definitely have heard stories from people who have contacted me over the years, and I have had clients who have been harmed. The conversations that I would have with these clients, and it wasn't just Jehovah's Witness, of course, it was a lot of high control religious groups. The kind of problems that people run into sexually and with marriage, marriage, for example, a marriage might not work out. It might have been kind of arranged by the church. And then 10 years, 20 years later, after massive amounts of conflict, and there's never been a relationship between the two people, really. They just managed, and they get to a certain age and they think, I just can't stand you anymore. I don't have, maybe the kids move out and it's just like, I don't even have to act like I'm in a relationship with you anymore, right? Like but the church won't let them divorce because according to their doctrine, it is completely wrong and they have to stay together. So I've had couples come to me in situations like that telling me that they don't want to connect. They just want to get along because the church is forcing them to live together, and they believe in their head that it's the right thing to do. So it was a very, because in the beginning, before it really sunk in for me, I just would like, so remind me why you're not just at least separating from each, because you really do not like each other. Remind me why, tell me again. And I think in the beginning, with one couple anyway, they were hesitant to tell me because they knew I was secular and might judge them or think it was strange. And I certainly didn't judge them. I did think it was strange. I hadn't known that. Of course, I knew intellectually, but I didn't think that those sort of elements would be in Seattle, but they are. Anyway, so that's another possibility as to the factors that contributed to the dynamic between Izzy and Johnny and Izzy and Stacy.
Not to be rude, I feel like if he chooses Stacy, he's going to regret it because I don't feel like their connection. I feel like Stacy's is Chris. And it's not the same kind of connection. I
think the first time, I think it's natural to think these things and say them. It's just not typical that they're going to be on camera and in the same room as the individuals that you're talking about. Normally you would go home and you'd have these long conversations on the phone or with your friends, and it would definitely be in this direction, right? I think it just looks bad because it's public, right? It has the feel of that she's proud of these statements because she knows she's being filmed, right? But it's possible that she's just in a whirlwind of emotion. It's still wrong. It's still not okay. It is petty, as she put it.
And I feel like if he leaves here without me, eventually he'll realize he fucked up. He's not going to be happy with her. I'm sorry.
She wouldn't know that at the time. It turned out to be true. But she wouldn't have known that.
Hi.
How you doing?
Oh my God.
You're really pretty.
I didn't notice this the first time, or I don't remember noticing it, but my wife talked to, because she'll watch it upstairs and then I'll be watching down here. And she was like, oh, the way JP was kissing. Okay. Wouldn't it be great if Stacy were right here just having a react? Wouldn't that be great? I've had this podcast for many, many, many years, and I have every 6 months or so, I'll be like, hey, you could come on the podcast and talk about that. And she's, no. No. I'm on a campaign. She's really close. I've gotten her to agree to maybe do a mock podcast with me where we would definitely not publish it, but that she would just have a chance to get an experience of it. She one is, I think she gets nervous about it, even though in a lot of other contexts she's totally fine with being on stage, and she's a model and she's an actress. She's been, maybe it's because it's off the cuff. It's probably because of that. Like, there's no script, I guess. So not only is she nervous about it, but also she just isn't a yammerer like me. She doesn't have a lot of things that she has to get out of her mouth. She's perfectly fine keeping them in her head. So she's not really compelled to move past the nervousness. Exactly. But anyway, one of the things that she said after we watched this, Stacy came at me and she's like, I'm going to kiss you the way JP did it. And she was like, That's what my wife was saying. I even think she used that sound effect. And yeah, I guess rewatching it, he's pretty, I don't know what word for it. There's a pretty high velocity, I guess.
Hi. Oh my God.
Will you marry me?
Yes.
And to be clear, I don't want to kick JP while he's down. I think that he has a good heart. It seems that way. And there's something going on there. As he said, in the interview well after the fact, he said that he needs to work on being more open and less reserved. So I don't want to make fun of him. I'm not mocking him. And I have had the unfortunate opportunity of seeing myself kiss Stacy on camera at times. Sometimes it's just like people taking video, or I will be taking a selfie. And whenever I see myself kissing her, I think, is that how I look when I kiss her? It feels so much better than it looks, I guess. So, I'm not saying I'm any better than him in that way. Apparently I don't come at Stacy with that velocity because she was seemingly indicating that was odd to her. All right, well, I want to thank you if you have subscribed to this YouTube channel. It does help us if you just subscribe. And I don't think it's any problem for you because, I subscribe to a lot of YouTube channels, probably hundreds, and I don't necessarily get spammed a bunch of videos. The algorithm still kind of selects videos that they think I would want to watch based on subscriber. Anyway, it helps us, I think, because sometimes sponsors and advertisers will gauge their deals based on subscribers, so it does help. But sometimes when I'm watching YouTube, it'll annoy me kind of when I feel pressure. It's like, hey, stop pressuring me, and I don't like to be backed into a corner, so I don't want to back you into a corner. So, and everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.